Tonight for First Coast News at 5, I'm Anthony Austin.
And I'm Heather Crawford. We're glad you're with us. First tonight, guilty on all counts. The Jacksonville man standing trial for the murder of this little girl. This is a 5-year-old who was killed in 2018. Her killer will spend the rest of his life in prison. Jonte Harris was on trial this week for the death of Zykerria Robinson. The jury returned a verdict just within the past 2 hours, and our Renata DeGregorio is on your side. She's been inside the courtroom covering this case. And Renata, I know you've been in touch with family members of the victim.
Yes, Heather, moments after the verdict, I was on the phone with the grandmother of Zykerria Robinson, the 5-year-old girl who was murdered. She tells me that she is glad everything turned out the way it did with the verdict. Jonte Harris was found guilty by the jury, and it only took them a little over 2 hours to do this. That is guilty of first-degree murder, aggravated manslaughter of a child, and aggravated child abuse. Prosecutors say Harris tortured and ultimately killed Zykerria in 2018 in their West Side home after months of abuse. Medical examiners finding adult bite marks and other injuries on the child, including bruising, black eyes, a broken clavicle. Harris was in a relationship with Zykerria's mother, Michelle Canamore, who pleaded guilty in 2019 to aggravated manslaughter of a child and cried through her testimony on the first day of Harris's trial. Harris remained looking solemn when the verdict was read. When he was getting handcuffed immediately afterwards, he was slightly shaking his head. The jurors were made up of all women except for one man. Defense attorneys argued there wasn't evidence to link Harris to Zykerria's injuries, but prosecutors argued today text messages Harris sent to Canamore, where he says he hit her on the head, were enough to convict him.
This is one of those cases that I know that I will never forget. As prosecutors, we are the voice for the victims and we are the strength for the victims.
Defense attorneys declined to do an interview. Also in the courtroom all week has been Harris's mother, and she says that she believes he is innocent. Coming up at 6, we'll hear from a child advocate who is close to the victim's family and why she believes the healing process will only start for them now. Live in Jacksonville, Renata DeGregorio, First Coast News.
Welcome to True Crimes with Ebony. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe. This story takes place in Jacksonville, Florida. In the early morning hours on October 18th, 2018, Michelle Canamore placed a 911 call stating that her 5-year-old Zykerria Robinson was unresponsive. Fire and rescue arrived, and they rushed Zykerria to a nearby hospital. A few days later, she passed away from her injuries. In January 2018, Michelle Canamore started dating Jonte Harris. Things were good at the beginning, until he moved in on June of 2018. Things started to change. He started becoming abusive to 5-year-old Zykerria Robinson. The abuse got so bad that she had to pull Zykerria out of school. The energetic, talkative Zykerria stopped talking because the abuse was so bad. In the Oak Tree Apartments where they live, something tragic was about to happen. That night on October 17th, 2018, Jonte Harris received a call from the mother of his kids accusing Zykerria and her older sister of inappropriate touching his kids when they was over visiting. It enraged him. So Jonte kicked Zykerria out of the house. And Michelle told her to come back in. So as Michelle turns around to walk into the house, he hits Zykerria in the head and knocked her unconscious. So they placed little Zykerria on the couch, and she was still unresponsive. So Michelle, her mother, leaves her there and heads to work. So around 10:30 that night, she arrives at 7-Eleven gas station where she works. Shortly after, she receives a text message from Jonte saying that he was done with the relationship and he was leaving. So she left work and headed home. Little Zykerria was still in the same spot and she was still unresponsive. She waited a whole 6 hours before she called 911. Fast forward to February 6, 2024. Jonte Harris was found guilty and sentenced to life in prison. Michelle pled guilty to her role in it a year after the crime happened, and she will be serving 25 years.
Parents of 5-year-old Zykerria Robinson announced that they've gained custody of Zykerria's sister. Zykerria died in October. Her mother, Michelle Canamore, and her mother's boyfriend, Jonte Harris, are both charged in her murder. News 4 Jax reporter Corley Peel is live from the Department of Children and Families now. Corley, Zykerria's grandparents say that they're planning to sue DCF.
Well, Safe Haven of Northeast Florida is, and from the start, they believe that DCF didn't do enough, and now they have an attorney involved. The grandparents wish that they could have gained custody of Zykerria and her sister sooner, before her life tragically ended. Months before 5-year-old Zykerria Robinson died from child abuse, her grandparents fought for custody of Zykerria and her sister.
Grandkids and
on Monday, they announced a judge granted them adoption of Zykerria's 6-year-old sister.
It's been a long process, but we're happy and we're glad we have her, and we don't ever have to worry about anybody else harming one of our grandkids again.
Zykerria's mother, Michelle Canamore, and her mother's boyfriend, Jonte Harris, are both charged with murder. Investigators say Harris hit Zykerria repeatedly in the head and face. Canamore then left her daughter unconscious for several hours before calling 911, according to police.
We felt something was wrong, but nobody would listen to us.
Safe Haven of Northeast Florida says they've hired an attorney who is seeking a civil lawsuit against DCF. They say DCF responded to Zykerria's home on reports of abuse a month prior to her death, but DCF claimed no abuse was found. Canamore told police after Zykerria's death that Harris had been abusing her 2 months before she died.
You got lives in your hands, and you need to investigate a little more thoroughly before you just write something off. You got a lot of people dependent on pretty much your outcome.
If action was taken sooner, Doyle believes Zykerria would still be alive, and he and his wife would have custody of both Zykerria and her sister. Safe Haven believes the state is seeking the death penalty for Harris, but based on Canamore's charges, they believe that she could be facing life plus 60 years in prison. I have reached out to the state attorney's office about that, and they said they are looking into it. I have also reached out to DCF about the potential lawsuit that they could be facing, but I have not heard back yet. Coming up tonight at 11, where Duval County ranks in child abuse and why Zykerria's family is hoping their case can save lives. Reporting live from the north side, Corley Peel, Channel 4, the local station.
This is definitely a tragic story of wanting a man so bad that you put a man before your kids. The mother failed her and CPS failed her, and it's a really sad story, but may she rest in peace. Until next time, stay safe. Thank you for watching.